So this is 21 hours, 2100 hours GMT, and 9 p.m. UK local time on Saturday, the 20th of March 2021, and we are continuing to look at the role of the Guardian, and we'll come back to updating on the campaign for Shamima Begum as against the negligence and illegality by the local Tower Hamlets Council, and the strange connection that exists between what happened in Tower Hamlets, or what the Tower Hamlets Council did by neglecting its duties on children, safeguarding children duties, as were owed to these girls, 4 girls. Now, we found the entry on the Wikipedia about the 4th girl, that is called Sharmeen Begum. And Sharmeen Begum, as the entry in the Wikipedia shows, the Wikipedia entries are, of course, not necessarily all evidentially conclusive, but this is the first kind of port of call, if you like, that we have actually effectively contacted and consulted and have been able to establish at least an entry on this girl, this Sharmeen Begum. Now, Sharmeen Begum, according to that entry, was facilitated in leaving the United Kingdom during the last quarter of 2014. And she was friends with the other 3 girls, Shamima Begum and her 2 friends. And the entry in the Wikipedia is astonishing. It actually names the East London Mosque, and it names a group called the IFE, Islamic Forum Europe, and it names a group of women. We never actually heard of them, but that is where this entry is, where we have seen it. Now, if any of this entry, the assertions about the involvement of these people at the East London Mosque, if any of that is correct, accurate, then there is no doubt what they did. So if there is no doubt what they did, how is it that none of the incumbents in succession, incumbents in the post of the elected mayor, first Lutfur Rahman, while these children were going to Syria and had gone to Syria, and the time between the February 2015, when the first report about Shamima Begum and her 2 friends were published in the mainstream media. That was February. So March, April. 3 calendar months after that, Lutfur Rahman was in post, incumbent as the elected mayor. What did he do about the involvement of the known kind of center, East London Mosque, London Muslim Center, the complex of buildings, and the Islamic Forum Europe, which is also widely known to be associated with and actually playing a controlling part of access to the complex. So what did Lutfur Rahman do? And when Andrew Gilligan broadcast on Channel 4 dispatches his kind of report about the East London. His report was actually called Britain's Islamic Republic. But he introduced the dispatches piece, by filming himself standing in front of the complex, the East London Mosque. And he went on detailing allegations and various things about this Islamic Forum Europe. We never knew who they are. We still don't know who they are. But references to the Islamic Forum Europe and the East London Mosque are frequently made together. So this is the first time that we have heard about any connection between the Islamic Forum Europe and these girls, especially this first one. In terms of chronology, this Sharmin Begum left the UK and went to Syria through Turkey. And that she took 500 pounds from her grandmother. All of this is coming from the entry that we have read first time this evening on the website of the Wikipedia. Prior to this, we had no knowledge of any of this. And she took 500 pounds from her grandmother, which suggests that, according to the entry, that would be about the price, cover the price of the plane ticket. We can check the actual price, that was average price for plane tickets in the late part of 2014, and we can update on that part of the assertion. But essentially, let's say that it was the 500 pounds that more or less covered the air fare. And then it is also mentioned in that entry that she took her grandmother's passport and she traveled on her grandmother's passport. Now that is a most astonishing kind of fact. This is some kind of contraption, but that is what is also mentioned in the Wikipedia entry. Then it says that it doesn't name the women, but a group of women based at the East London Mosque. What it suggests is that they effectively groomed her and they encouraged her to go to Syria, leave the UK, and they said that if she died, then she would meet her mother who had died recently. Now this is too much of a series of claims we have read in the Wikipedia. And this actually reinforces the demand for Tower Hamlets Council to publish what they did and how they did whatever they did to ignore and neglect these children, and what they have been doing since the claims became public through the Wikipedia. What have they been doing? This has been in the public domain for some time. We don't know when exactly they put the thing together. But what has John Biggs been doing since it became first public, and then what has been the behavior or the action prior to John Biggs becoming incumbent in the post of mayor, which happened on the 11th of June 2015. So up to the 11th of June 2015 and the 23rd of March, there was a gap. And at that time, somebody, probably Oliver Roman, was in post for some time before he was kind of ordered to cease being an acting incumbent. So whoever was in the post of mayor had the duty to carry out investigation into the assertions contained in the Wikipedia about the involvement of a number of known people, if you like, based at and operating from the complex of buildings known as the East London Mosque. And the same entry also relates to or refers to Shamima Begum and two of our friends, and says that they were all friends with Sharmin Begum. And since we started the campaign on the 26th of February 2021, immediately after the publication of the rubber stamping ruling by the so-called Supreme Court, we have been daily broadcasting and publishing stuff about the rights of these children being denied and these children being exposed to be exploited. And up to today, we have said that we don't know who got in touch with these girls or who was in contact with these girls, wherever they were contacting these girls from, or whatever the method or the mode of communication was or were. But now we have to add this one by saying that according to the entry in the Wikipedia we retrieved today, Saturday, these are the facts. So we shall be producing the actual page, the Wikipedia page and the entry, as part of our evidential, factual update. And let's look at this entry again. And see what it says about the Sharmina Begum. And the Wikipedia entry, which we are looking at, says that Sharmina Begum was born in 1999, Bethnal Green, Tower Hamlets, London, England, and she disappeared about February 2019, aged 1920. Now, I don't know what they said about why they're saying 2019, because she left the UK, according to the body of the article, she left the UK in December 2014. So why are they saying that she disappeared circa February 2019, aged? Now, that has to be explained. On the names of the parents, where the mother's name is a bit specific, father's name is very general, because Muhammad Uddin could be anybody, because Muhammad is a common male first name for Muslims, at least in Bangladesh, and Uddin is also a very common second name or last name. So it's impossible to immediately recognize unless you happen to know these individuals personally. And what they're doing here, it says that these women, known as the Sisters Forum, so it looks like forum is a common word, and it suggests that this was the sisters wing of the Islamic Forum of Europe. Given the context, we are only going by the context. And Sharmina Begum's mother died of cancer in January 2014. And her father remarried in September 2014. And Begum, that is Sharmina Begum, left for Syria in December 2014. Begum's father, Muhammad Uddin, said that Begum's behavior changed. She stopped listening to Western music and started going to her room to pray. But he assumed this was a simple grief reaction to her mother's death. At the time of her father's second marriage, she lived with her grandmother. Now, in the body of the article, there are two grandmothers mentioned. Now, this one doesn't specify which one, paternal grandmother or maternal grandmother. But it could be possible that she lived with her mother's mother. So members of her family were sure Sharmina Begum was targeted for recruitment by a group known as the Sisters Forum within the Islamic Forum of Europe. So it does actually specify that the Sisters Forum was part of the Islamic Forum of Europe. The only other time that we had any real reference to this Islamic Forum of Europe, or IFE, was when Andrew Gilligan broadcast the Dispatches program on Channel 4 in March 2010. And it is saying that the Sisters Forum met at an East London mosque. Well, at an East London mosque. They're not saying that it was the East London Mosque in Whitechapel Road, but an East London mosque. Given all the circumstances about the complex and who has controlling access to the complex, it is most likely that that mosque would be the East London Mosque. And then in the next paragraph it goes on. Women from the group that recruited her have been described as brainwashing her, telling her she would meet her recently deceased mother in paradise if she, that is Sharmina Begum, died a martyr, presumably in Syria. So women from the group are reported to have taken Sharmina Begum to the airport for her departure. So that is all clearly stated there in that article. Sharmina Begum was friends with Amira Abbasi, Shamima Begum, unrelated, because although the Begum is the common name of the last name for women, and Khadija Sultana, who left for Syria a couple of months later. All four went to Bethnal Green Academy. Now, as anyone who has been watching this program closely, this is the school that for most of its history had been known as the Dainford School. And I campaigned to keep its kind of structure, single-sex boys' school, in 1994-95. And the updates will be duly posted. At this point, my campaign is not directly relevant to any of this updated access that we have found. Now then it says, under joining ISIL, after her mother died, Sharmina Begum became increasingly interested in religious themes. Although her family had previously described her as non-religious, she is said to have begun to pray and stop listening to Western music. According to the police, Sharmina Begum was groomed by two unidentified women to join ISIL, and that those two had taken her to Gatwick Airport on a flight to Turkey, from where she made her way to Syria. According to reports by the family, she received £500 from her grandmother to purchase the plane ticket. Begum was not getting along with her new stepmother and had gone to live with one of the grandmothers. That is what I said, one of the grandmothers. Which one they don't say. She used her grandmother's passport. Again, they don't say which grandmother, there are two of them, for her travels, telling her, that is her grandmother whose passport she used, that she needed to borrow the passport for her schoolwork. She used 500 pounds, she told her grandmother she needed for shopping to buy her airline ticket. The women who groomed her are thought to be members of the East London Mosque in Whitechapel. You see, so they're mentioning all of them. This is extraordinary information that we have read today. And that they are members of a group called the Sisters Forum within the Islamic Forum of Europe. The mosque, however, denied any involvement in the radicalization of Begum. Now, this is ridiculous because the mosque denying is irrelevant because they are not saying, the entry is not saying that the mosque did it. The entry is saying that the Islamic Forum Europe and its organization or organizational component, Sisters Forum, did it. So there is a very clear distinction between the mosque and the Islamic Forum Europe, at least in bureaucratic organizational terms. But all of these deserves to be very urgently treated by the Tower Hamlets Council. And what did the mayor at the time impose, Luther Roman, do, and what has John Biggs been doing since this clear identification of the East London Mosque, the Islamic Forum Europe, the Sisters Forum became public and got published in the public domain? So anyone who has been watching our campaign and our saying that the Shamima Begum has been betrayed and neglected by Tower Hamlets Council, contrary to its duties under safeguarding children, will know that this is something that is of the utmost importance. And there is a thing in there that in the same entry about Cressida Dick. Cressida Dick has said about the Sharmina Begum and her being brainwashed by these women. Yes. She said on the 19th of February 2019, Cressida Dick, that is, as Commissioner of the London Metropolitan Police, that she defended the police against claims they should have been able to anticipate Begum's friends following her example. Cressida Dick disputed that Begum was traveling on the same plane as another teenage recruit who was prevented from traveling. Now, Dick acknowledged another 15-year-old girl was prevented from traveling the night Sharmina Begum left, but said that she thought, she meaning Cressida Dick, the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, still in post, despite last Saturday's police assault on the grieving mourners for Sarah Everard in Clapham Common in London's Wandsworth borough. Said that she thought, that is Cressida Dick, the other girl was on a different plane. As for the criticism that the police could have prevented her friends from following her example, Cressida Dick asserted that the police did speak with her friends. Notice what is coming. But at the time, Cressida Dick saw them merely as witnesses, not potential victims. Because knowing somebody's intentions is extremely complicated. Now, this is a quote, this whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this paragraph of 5 words is in quotation because said Cressida Dick. Knowing somebody's intentions is extremely complicated. Of course it is. But if there is a safeguarding children duty in place on the local council, then shouldn't the police, whether it was Cressida Dick or somebody else under her line management, should they not have considered at least the possibility that this was not a minor issue that should have been dismissed? And I think that this shows this is the wrong time that we are talking about the police. Wrong time for the police, because the police have been criticized today, Saturday, 20th of March, 2021, because of the way they allowed the anti-lockdown demonstration to go through London without arresting any of them, or without causing any problem to the demonstrators. These are the same police people, the same police force, the London Metropolitan Police, still fronted by Cressida Dick, that allowed this. And this was the one that actually had attacked the women peacefully mourning Sarah Everett a week ago, last Saturday. Now here is another connection with Tower Hamlets Council. Sunderland Labour councillor Michael Assel, who wrongly and persistently smeared council critic Len Lowther with being a paedophile on social media, as reported in Private Eye, issue number 1535. This issue of Private Eye, I'm reading it from, is 1543. So it was just 8 numbers before this, I think. So I'm reading this again. Sunderland Labour councillor Michael Essel, ESSL, who wrongly and persistently smeared council critic Len Lowther with being a pedophile on social media, did not breach the City Council's code of conduct. The Standards Committee of the same council has ruled, because he was not on council business at the time that he smeared council critic Len Lowther. This so-called Ken defense, K-E-N, as in Ken Livingstone, after former London Mayor Livingstone's excuse for abusing a Jewish reporter. That reporter's name, for anyone watching this for factual reference, is Oliver. And he was, at the time, working for the London Evening Standard. And the Ken defense is now the standard get out in such cases. Now, this is the problem with the private lie, as I have said before. Everything to do with the kind of illegality of the legal system and bureaucracy, they kind of water down and they dilute it, and they don't go into the actual crux of the thing. This whole so-called defense should be dismissed and exposed as an illegality and a criminality by private lie, because that is what it is. This is not a defense, because the so-called standards committee of the council, the same council, Sunderland Council, is not a legal kind of adjudicator. It's a bureaucratic extension of the council kind of administration and regime that has delivered exactly the kind of denials that it has been set up for. And the reason we said that the Ken Lyingstone Livingston is connected to the Tower Hamlets Council negligence is because Tower Hamlets Borough was the borough that cast, or the voters cast, the largest number of votes for Ken Lyingstone Livingston at the election that he lost to Boris Johnson in 2008. And the reason why Tower Hamlets Borough polling stations and voters were recorded as being so pro Ken Lyingstone Livingston is not an accident. It wasn't because the weather in Tower Hamlets was particularly different from the rest of London on the polling day. The reason is that Ken Lyingstone Livingston made a kind of deal with the Islamic Forum Europe, or their kind of co-operatives based on premises in the East London Mosque and the London Muslim Centre. And in the few weeks, let's say the weekend before the election, I noticed that there was a presence, particularly noticeable presence, of Bangladeshi origin young men in the streets of Brick Lane and Whitechapel and nearby streets, carrying very well printed cards and leaflets asking people to vote for Ken Livingstone. That was very odd because there was no other kind of canvassers in that way, canvassing for any other candidate. And none of these young males appeared to be local or appeared to be resident in this country for long. It suggested that they had at the time, 2008, so it was very much part of the UK's membership of the European Union. The many people from Italy and other places coming to the UK included a significant number of these young people who had been, if you like, groomed or recruited by the people operating from the premises in the East London Mosque or the London Muslim Centre. So I checked by sitting with one of them in a cafe in Brick Lane, and I checked how much this individual young person knew about the local community and the post of mayor of London, etc., etc. And it was quite clear to me that the individual didn't have anything to do with the community here or didn't have any knowledge about London. So I told him that he was being wrong and he was being corrupt. And I told him to stop it. Now, that was only one person that I spoke to. But as it says, in the Siloti language, if you taste the one unit of rice, when it's cooking, then you can feel whether the rest of the rice has been cooked properly or not. So I assume that if I said this detailed kind of statement, if I told this person that what he was doing was wrong, then perhaps some of the others working with him in the same way would take some note and stop doing it. That was my duty, my moral duty, to do what I did. I didn't anticipate him sharing the information that I had given him with anybody else, and I didn't anticipate that he would actually oblige me or follow my advice and stop doing what he was doing. But that is a piece of evidence that shows Ken Livingstone particularly kind of focused on Tower Hamlets. Now, 6 years previous to that, during his first kind of term in the post of mayor at the expense of London, Ken Lyingstone Livingstone staged a kind of photo call. Somewhere in Brick Lane itself, actually in Brick Lane. And at the time, I was helping a Bangladeshi person belonging to the kind of international operations that goes under the name of Bangabandhu Parishad. That is supposed to be a kind of platform named after Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And this person came to me for help. So that shows the diversity of the people who seek my help in legal matters. And this guy, during a period of few months of my advising him, remarked, based entirely on the response from the people we were communicating to, that is Tower Hamlets Council. Because Tower Hamlets Council was completely dumbfounded by the letters that I wrote on his behalf and was unable, every candidate, every post holder in Tower Hamlets Council at that time was dumbfounded and was unable to reply to the letters. Well, this is not new or exceptional. This is the response from the UK central government department, the various parliamentary people, etc., etc. And most of the MPs, like Stephen Timms, they are absolutely unable to reply. So that is the typical thing. Now, this Bangabandhu Parishad man, who I don't know what his current style is, but his name is Zahidul Hasan, Dr. Zahid Hasan. But I call him Zaidul Hasan. And he said that the late Peter Shaw also used to call him Zaidul Hasan. We won't go too much into Zaidul Hasan, except to say that when these council, Tower Hamlets Council employees, legal section, chief executive, etc., were unable to reply to the letters that I wrote on his behalf, he said that I was sitting on a gold mine. And Zaidul Hasan telling me that I was sitting on a gold mine was not about the actual extraordinary impact that my letters were having. It was the angle of money that he was looking at. So he was looking at the kind of retainers and fees as a kind of legal rights advocate that I could demand that could resemble or exceed what subsequently has been known as the daily rates or hourly rates of Sir David Pennick. Now, David Pennick is a QC licensed law trader who appeared before the Supreme Court in the name of Shamima Begum. So you can see the connections of David Pennick, Ken Lyingstill Livingstone, and in the analysis, factual analysis, somebody who is a fervent kind of promoter of the ideas that Sheikh Mujib was the greatest Bengali ever to have been born. Now that is, of course, absolutely untrue and totally unacceptable, because there are Bangladeshi people in Bengal and people like Fazlul Haq, the Sher Bengal, the tiger of Bengal, Fazlul Haq, and of course, the great Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani. These are the people who have been insulted by anyone who has devised the claim that Sheikh Mujib was the greatest Bengali ever to be born. This is something that will be examined in due course, but that is just the contextual reference I've made about the connections and the contacts of this person, Zaidul Hasan. 2001 and 2002 is when he approached me for help. And the help was about the behavior of a man from, I think Indian state of Kerala. I don't know whether that is the state. It's either Tamil Nadu or Kerala. And he may be still alive in the UK. His name is Syriac Maprail or Maprail. So it suggests that his name is not in traditional Hindu culture name, it suggests that his name is a Christian name. And there were allegations against Serial Maprial and allegations concerning his behavior in the abuse of the then phase of the registered charity, Tower Hamlets Race Equality Council, or Race Equality in Tower Hamlets. All these years later, I am its secretary and chief executive officer, pro bono, if you like, or unpaid. But that's the registered charity that has changed its name over the years, but it has remained the same charity, if you like, the same organization. And I joined it and I became active in it in the very early 1970s, and when it was called Citizens, CCTH, Council of Citizens of Tower Hamlets. Remember the long piece I did about Joe Hunt? That is when Joe Hunt was sitting as the kind of paid official. I'm not paid, this organization is not paid, but that is the same organization historically. And so the discussion about the brainwashing and the promise that she would go to heaven and paradise and meet her mother if she died a martyr, that suggests that this child, Sharmina Begum, was actually incited or encouraged to somehow put herself in a position where she would be martyred in order to meet her mother, who had died during January, I think, 2014. Whatever the details, Tower Hamlets Council is not mentioned in the Wikipedia entry. And the authorities that the Wikipedia entry refers to might imply Tower Hamlets Council, but explicitly they're not mentioning it. So whatever the actual details of the reason why they mention Cressida Dick as kind of making excuses for the police negligence, nobody is making any reference to Tower Hamlets Council. So it's not a reference, it's no excuse. And the reason for that is that at the time, neither the police nor the Home Office nor anybody else, including the spying outfit called Prevent or whoever they had been paying in Tower Hamlets to spy on fellow Muslims and inform them about the activities going on among the Muslim population. So all of these references add up to painting Tower Hamlets Council as a dead council, dead in terms of activities, duties. So when we had a Siloti language kind of two-part broadcast last night, I had great difficulty in understanding the question or the comments by the person who appeared on the phone on the program, who said that Tower Hamlets Council needed somebody to tell them what was going on. Now, obviously, that is based on unfamiliarity with how a council operates and unfamiliarity with the council's duties, etc., etc. So we shall not be repeating that kind of program again, because I have found that talking to a subject like solo, like this I'm doing, produces more sustained and coherent, continuous kind of comment and content and substance. And for viewers and anyone else who is watching this, either kind of simultaneously or subsequently, the evidence and the narrative and the various implications are more important than just giving somebody a call or making somebody appear on the program. And that is the weakness that I find imperils the actual purpose. Because of the lockdown, most of the programs that are now accessible online are there for the show. The substance is lacking, and there is no enlightenment, there is no update, there is no continuity. So we are talking about the campaign currently going on, supposedly, for securing a vote, no vote, in Tower Hamlets on the 6th of May this year, which is only a few weeks away, to the question of elected mayor. This is a referendum that is taking place on the 6th of May. And the referendum would succeed, even at this stage, if all the facts of the illegalities and the corruption and lying and dishonesty perpetrated by Lutfur Rahman and John Biggs, even about this particular group of children. And I think that this message we have been giving, and we shall be reinforcing with evidence every day. And now going to the update on the Sarah Everard mourners that were assaulted and attacked by the police on Saturday last week. Today, Saturday, the anti-lockdown kind of demonstration, as many people have observed already on so-called social media, those demonstrators were treated by the police as if the demonstrators were not breaking any law or the COVID-19 law on mixing and social distancing, rules being broken. And this is something that will be, I think, featured in comments that will actually come, not just on the social media, which is full of comments, and I will check that and we shall update accordingly, but in the so-called Fleet Street mainstream newspaper. Because the peaceful vigil participants, who mainly were women on Saturday last week, were not there to cause any problems. They were there to grieve for Sarah Everard, and yet they were assaulted. They were, including, what treatment this young person, Patsy Stevenson, was subjected to. I mean, leaves no need for illustrating what they were doing or detailing what they did. And her picture being held to the ground by the policeman was circulated around the globe. And I think that is a very interesting illustration of why Cressida Dick has probably outlived her relevance to be in the post of Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. She is, of course, there in the picture on the front page of the latest fortnightly Private Eye. So this picture, whenever it was taken, saying that no one to be sacked. And what they're meaning there, of course, is Cressida Dick, who is seen on the left of the screen, left of the photograph, and in the middle is the bully, Priti Patel, the so-called Home Secretary, and on the right is Boris Johnson. Now, Cressida Dick reportedly on last Sunday and the Monday defied calls for her to resign. And this issue of the Private Eye has got a number of so-called half kind of funny pieces about what happened when the police attacked the peaceful women. And it says in here this piece about police log, Neasden Central Police Station. Now, Neasden, for those who are not familiar with Private Eye's in-house language, Neasden is a fictional kind of part of North London. And they locate all kinds of things in Neasden for illustration. This is a semi kind of satirical piece. Officers gathered to hear about new project Operation Gentle Touch. Now, Neasden is also used as London whenever it suits the narrative they're writing. And this one is actually, Neasden is being used as a reference to London itself, the whole of London, that is. And it says, officers, that is police officers, gathered to hear about new project, Operation Gentle Touch, shortly to be launched across Greater Neasden area before planned protests in Neasden Park. Officers will spread out across area offering service and support on a person-by-person basis, reassuring public that their safety is paramount and gently encourage them to return home. Now, at the end of this particular kind of piece, it says, Operation Gentle Touch is reclassified as Operation Get on the Floor Now, as they ordered Patsy Stevenson. And here is a picture of 3 policemen standing behind or around a white woman. It could be Patsy Stevenson. It could be somebody else with similar kind of appearance and height. And she's saying in the bubble, how about some restraint? That is, she's saying that how about policemen restraining themselves from attacking women? And the policeman next to her says, she's right. Get the handcuffs, Sarge. That is Sergeant. So that's the picture and that's the bubble. And the thing is there. And what the Private Eye coverage or cover up shows is typical, very typical of the complacent attitude, which is what I have always pointed out about Private Eye. It's complacent. And the complacence is linked to the de facto kind of arrangement that Private Eye has got with the establishment. It doesn't hit the kind of target of the so-called humor and the satire more severely than maybe 5% or 5 points on a scale of 100. And one of the key reasons why Private Eye has become so kind of complacent and ineffective and behaves like a poodle is because Ian Hislop runs the business model of it being the satirical kind of critic of the establishment, but without biting anyone. And if they bite, then it has no effect. Like the late former Labour Party leader Michael Foot had used against a Tory member, or the late potential leader Dennis Healy had used a mocking phrase against a Conservative frontbencher and compared him with useless kind of unbiting kind of opposition. Now, if the Private Eye is that lame and timid and futile in its criticism of the police after such an outrageous day of attacks on women who were mourning, the victim of a woman murdered by a policeman, according to allegations and according to the charge sheet. There is another little worrying thing about the report. The first report that has been published, report by the coroner's finding about Sarah Everard, what actually killed her. They're now speculating as to what actually killed her. That suggests very sinister possibilities that it may even be the case that they're building a kind of scenario whereby they can say, well, this guy actually didn't do it. If this guy, Wayne Cousins, who has been arrested, accused, and charged, didn't do it, then they can say that Sarah Everett died of natural causes. And they may even suggest that she found herself 80 miles away in a bushy kind of, in a bush or whatever place they found her remains, that she was drunk and she walked 80 miles or something. Now this should be taken together with the report by Jess Phillips, who is a Home Office minister, shadow minister, and who during the week said that during the day, every day, 218 or something number of women are raped. And we have posted critical comments about that remark by Jess Phillips, which was actually recorded by the ITV's Peston program. And as we have noticed before, Peston is a member of the propaganda team of Boris Johnson. So there was nothing. I mean, Preston, as Jess Phillips said that, Preston was looking like he was amused. He wasn't looking shocked. He wasn't looking outraged about that statistics. So what I said earlier was that given these people in places of position of authority and influence making anti-women comments and anti-women kind of jokes in a way, it suggests that this country is in a very dark moment. And there is no sign, given the whether the Metropolitan Police treated these anti-lockdown protesters without any similar reaction to them, similar to the brutal, oppressive attack on the women that they mounted last Saturday. It is clear that this country is in a crisis, and there is no sign that Boris Johnson is bothered about safeguarding women. Remember the safeguarding word? And Keir Starmer is in a self-induced state of kind of slumber that he doesn't plan to wake up from. That's the narrative. That's the actual evidential narrative. Now we go back to Tower Hamlets and talk about the campaign to stop this post of mayor. The contents of the Facebook comments that I have seen in the last few hours, comments made by the Conservative councillor Peter Golds and a couple of others so far, suggests that they are thinking that they can encourage people to vote against the mayor system just by spewing and spieling little phrases and statements. Apart from our campaign and apart from my comments about the fact that safeguarding children duties were denied to these schoolgirls by Tower Hamlets Council. There has been no other commenter or program presenter or anybody even talking about this. They don't even know about this. I did the basic work and I brought out the concept and everything. And even after that, there is no evidence that they understand what the council's duty means, whatever the duty is. They think that somebody in the community has to go to the council and tell them what is going on. I mean, that is a big gulf of understanding of what a council's duties are. Now, today's revelation to us, that is, via the Wikipedia entry about Sharmina Begum, this is shocking. And the fact that despite this shocking fact being online available in the public domain, there has been no mention of this by the council or any of the councillors or any of the so-called ethnicity-linked media outlets anywhere in Tower Hamlets or wherever. And this means that both Lutfur Rahman and John Biggs should be subjected to serious legal action for exposing these children to the grave risk that now appears to have been done, which is why Tower Hamlets Council doesn't have anything on its website about any of these girls. So the council has been allowed to behave as a criminal contributor to the destruction of the lives of these schoolgirls. Anyone who has lost an infant, one infant baby child, can be excused for feeling very, 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 very lost and overwhelming loss. No other person can feel what the mother of the mother has been going through. And yet, before the age of whatever, probably up to 17, she gave birth to 3 children in succession, and she lost all of them in succession. Shamima Begum. So where is the idea of care, sympathy, humanity from the local council? Because if one of these girls, let's Shamima or the other any of the other 3 had been kidnapped, I've said the imagery before, had been kidnapped from the street in Tower Hamlets, what would they do? There would be worldwide outcry, and genuinely so, rightly so. And the nearest example I can give is that these children have been hijacked or kidnapped. And despite this shocking thing happening, Tower Hamlets Council is completely in denial, absolutely silent. So I tell the people who are campaigning to stop this mayor post to make the note that these 2 mayors have done this. Let these girls disappear and have not done anything to safeguard them. If the council had a kind of structure that had a leader and councillors in posts and councillors open to kind of able to speak their minds and speak on policies, issues, there would have been a lot of discussion by councillors and the leader, whoever the leader might have been in those years. But because it has been dark age form, and the secrecy and the dictatorship and the bribery and the kind of patronizing, kind of buying the silence of people, the mayor system has contributed seriously to the complacency by Town Council and the betrayal of these girls. We are not talking about the Supreme Court at this stage, because if the girls were protected and safeguarded, and if Sharmina had been and approached and brought back from the Syria by the council, then none of these things would have happened. And Shamima Begum, I mean, what kind of place does a potential mother go to give birth? Do they go to a war zone? Think about this. And this was happening right in front of their eyes, the Star Homeless Council mayors. And they hadn't heard any of this. That is how they pretended, and they're still pretending. So what we are saying to Town Homeless Council is to do the right thing now. It's too late, but it's not too late, if you see what I mean. Too late for the victims to protect so much that they've lost. But it's not too late for Shamima Begum. And hopefully it's not too late for Sharmina. For Town Homeless Council to mount immediately urgent rescue operations to bring these girls back. And the operation must include challenging the government. Because there were children when they were, well, when Sajid Javid actually 2018 took away these children's, were Shamima Begum's British citizenship birth, she was still a child. So in addition to the breaking of the international law, by making Shamima Begum stateless as a child, Sajid Javid was actually committing a series of additional crimes and offences for which he must be tried. And Town Homeless Council mayors must be tried for their negligence. Anyone campaigning for scrapping the mayor post must make this the most important issue on which attention can be focused. Don't be deterred because I'm the one who is leading it. I mean, you don't expect me to do anything else. I'm leading it. I'm the campaigner, and I'm doing this 11 years after I warned that the elected mayor was going to be a disaster for the borough and the community. And for 11 years, I've been campaigning against the mayor system. Those who are promoting Lutfur Rahman, or his line that he never did anything wrong while he was imposed as mayor, well, he did wrong on these girls. Duties that the council owed these girls to safeguard them. That is wrong. Number two wrong is that the solicitors' disciplinary tribunal acting on the solicitors' regulation authority, that is SRA, gave the prosecution before the solicitors' disciplinary tribunal, the prosecution evidence against Lutfur Rahman. Now, this is the body that regulates license, law traders, licenses, solicitors. When they make a prosecution case, they don't do it lightly. So the Solicitors Regulation Authority, or SRA, produced a bundle against Lutfur Rahman. They didn't imagine the bundle. They did take into account all the evidence of Lutfur Rahman's behavior. And the Solicitors Regulation Authority, let's see what it actually says in summary. And here the first item under his name, it says Lutfur Rahman, solicitor, and that gives the reference number 002787, followed by these words. Prosecution date 3rd of August 2015. Decision, prosecution, outcome, referral to now. This is the item that the Law Gazette, that is the Law Society's Gazette, published on the 20th of December 2017. And the headline of that piece is 86,000 £86,000 costs as tribunal strikes off former mayor. They mean former mayor in the name of Tower Hamlets, at the expense of Tower Hamlets. Lutfur Rahman, I'm reading the actual piece in the Law Society Gazette. Lutfur Rahman, the disgraced former mayor of London's Tower Hamlets borough, was today struck off the roll of solicitors and handed an £86,400 court order. The Solicitors' Disciplinary Tribunal found all allegations put forward by the Solicitors' Regulation Authority to be proven, bringing an end to a case which dates back nearly 3 years. Rahman, they're saying it. I don't know whether he was a specialist on anything, but they are saying a family law specialist was ordered to vacate his position of mayor in 2015 after an election court found him guilty of illegal and corrupt practices. The SRA subsequently charged Rahman with failing to uphold the rules, the rule of law, and administration of justice, failing to act with integrity, and failing to behave in a way that maintains the trust the public places in him and in the provision of legal services. On the third day of hearing, a 3-person tribunal this morning found Rahman liable on all counts. Rahman, a solicitor of 20 years, they are saying it, was a partner at the London firm McCormack's Law for 8 years before becoming Tower Hamlets' first directly elected mayor in 2010. Representing the SRA, Counsel Ed Levy of Fountain Court Chambers, that is, counsel means a barrister, licensed law trader, said yesterday that the Solicitors' Disciplinary Tribunal should take account of the election court's findings when deciding on the merits of the disciplinary case. Levy said the magisterial court ruling against Rahman should give conclusive weight to the SDT. At the start of this week's hearing, Rahman failed to adjourn the case on the grounds that he could not find a representative and did not feel able to represent himself. He added that an application to amend the judicial review into the election court's findings was still pending. He did not attend the proceedings. Now, that is absolutely untrue. No judicial review application was effectively accepted on behalf of Lutfur Rahman, and none has been held. So that is the summary of the news item dated the 20th of December 2017, when the SDT, that is Solicitors' Disciplinary Tribunal, struck him off the register, Lutfur Rahman. So for him to say, or for anyone claiming on his behalf anything about the mayor system and anything about Lutfur Rahman's time in post as the elected kind of mayor and suggest that he did nothing wrong, what are they doing? Of course he did wrong. If he didn't do wrong, then why didn't he prove it to the solicitor's disciplinary tribunal? He didn't even attend. Not that it was like kind of another formality. He had to attend and argue his case, and he didn't. I mean, it's only theoretical, but I have to say a long list of things that are absolutely part of the actual core evidence. When he was still at school, I think, I don't want to say exactly that he was in school in 1980, but in 1980, in the Great Oreck Street, I was walking in the Great Oreck Street going towards the Whitechapel Road from the northern end of the Great Oreck Street, going south. And I heard at least two voices addressing me, "Sir." So I didn't know who was calling me. So I turned around and I saw two of the students that I had kind of taught political action, community action, defense of the community, values, moral values, ethics, etc., etc. For 7 years of my life, I gave to teaching them about the community and defense of the community during the whole of the 1970s. And this was 1980, remember? And these boys called me, "Sir," and I looked and I saw them. And I saw this other young person that I hadn't seen before. This was Lutfur. And those two were very keen to introduce me to this boy. And they said that he had joined their youth organization at the time. And they said short things about him, that he was very keen to join them and help them and understand and learn from them as to how to help the community. Words to that effect. Not a long conversation. So I wished them luck and good luck and everything. And then I went wherever I was going, Whitechapel Road and then probably New Road. Now that was 1980. Almost 14 years later, I was coming out of the Aldgate East underground station and I was exiting through the eastern exit. And I saw this same face greeting me with the traditional salam. So I stopped for a few minutes and I said, "What are you doing now?" He said he was working with a firm of solicitors and he had become a solicitor. Now that was 94. If the kind of 2017 report in the Law Society Gazette is correct, then he wasn't yet admitted as a solicitor. But he said that. And he gave me a calling card, visiting card, with his name and the name of a firm of solicitor. Retrospectively, looking back now, it is possible that although he might not have been yet an admitted barrister, solicitor, practicing solicitor, when a licensed solicitor is given the license, they're called admitted. And when a licensed law trading barrister is given a license, they're called to the bar. So this one was yet to be admitted as a solicitor, as other things happening after that have proved. So I went my way and he went his way. He was going into the tube system and I was coming out of the tube system, underground system. 13 years later, this child, 11-year-old girl, Nasima Begum, was killed due to the combined negligence of the London ambulance service and the pediatric section, that is, the section that deals with children's illnesses, at the Royal London Hospital based in Whitechapel Road. After that child died, her father, who is now deceased, Mr. Eklasuraman, saw me while he was walking through the, I think, Parfait Street in London, E1. I was going to the commercial road and he was coming from the commercial road and going north. He and I knew each other. He was present at many of the campaign meetings I organized on their estate. And so he greeted me with a salam and he said, "Could you have a word with me?" And I said, "Of course." And he said to me the sad story that his 11-year-old child had died. And the family was distraught because the child had died due to the combined negligence of the London ambulance service and the Royal London Hospital. So he wondered if I could do anything to help them. Well, I could not do the impossible, which was to bring the child back, which is the thing that would have been most relieving and end the trauma. So I could try to do the next best thing, which is what I do. I had to start immediately within that hour, contacting the department, contacting the ambulance service, demanding to know what their excuse was, contacting the hospital. I didn't have an office, so I made the calls from a payphone based in New Road, just outside the School of Dentistry in the New Road. And I made the calls with the changes, whatever change I had, payphone. You are taking on the London ambulance service, you are taking on the Royal London Hospital, and you don't even have a proper phone. You are making calls from the street payphone. That's the story, that one aspect of the story of all the campaigns that I do. So I called and I found, obviously, the answer was that the ambulance service was in denial, as was the Royal London Hospital. And so I began issuing, that was 94, remember, I began issuing statements over the phone and by fax, wherever I could organize a fax. I don't remember where I went, but I did do the faxing of the statements. And the item hit the news. The London television news outlets were immediately on the case and several stories were broadcast. And I shall discuss the behavior of the lying, ethnicity-linked journalists who actually lied about my role. And this is something that is central to the whole kind of investigation into the role played by the surrogates and stooges employed by the BBC, ITV, and other mainstream. They sabotage the work of the community and they sabotage the work of me. Well, they never succeed because, they can't sabotage something original that I do always. But the fact that they try to sabotage is the issue, which is what Lutfur Rahman did. Lutfur Rahman, in the course of the next few days, I had a meeting with the solicitors that were assigned for the family. And the solicitors were absolutely racist and stupid. And when I say solicitors are absolutely racist and stupid, I do not say that lightly. There is no mystery. There is no secret to any profession where the truth is subsidiary or secondary to some secret. There is no such secret. So when I sat down with the solicitor, a female, a white woman, I wanted to know what law she was going to invoke in representing the community, the distraught, bereaved family of Nasima Begum. This questioning by me, introduced to her as a friend of the family, didn't impress the solicitor because she thought I was going to interfere too much with too much evidence, when she was going to kind of do a routine. So I needed to find somebody else to act as the solicitor. So I called Lutfur Rahman on the card that he had given me. And I said, "Can you take on the case?" And he said bluntly, "No." He didn't say he could suggest something and he could organize some help or something. He didn't. He just said no, and he didn't want to know. Remember what we are talking about. This girl's death had been in the news, in the main news. And he didn't want to know. So anyone watching this and anyone hearing about the Khoodeelaar campaign demanding answers from Tower Hamlets Council as to why successive mayors of Tower Hamlets Council neglected these school children in grave danger can understand why I am so confident that Lutfur Rahman intentionally or negligently behaved about safeguarding these children. Because in 1994, he didn't want to know about Nasima Begum. Nasima Begum to Shamima Begum. These are the facts. So what has happened with the case of Nasima Begum, despite the fact that Lutfur Rahman instantly told me that he couldn't help, I got the campaign going and I got the Secretary of State for Health forced to resign that post. Now that is something no solicitor could dream of achieving. But I did that. That is typical of my, if you like, outcome. So let's see what This is dated the 19th of September, 1994, and it's on the website of the independent.co.uk. And the byline is to Leslie Gerard. And the headline to that story, a schoolgirl, the ambulance inquiry admits errors. A schoolgirl in desperate need of attention died on a day of inadequate 999 cover in East London, reports Leslie Gerard. And it says, an official inquiry into the death of a schoolgirl who waited nearly an hour for an ambulance has uncovered a catalogue of errors and fundamental failures within the service. So that was the story about the inquiry. And that inquiry was started by the government and the ambulance service, being forced into a corner by me and the campaign for justice for Nasima Begum. Okay, so that is the kind of thing that I do and I have done. And Don Primarolo at that time was the shadow health spokesperson for the Labour Party, still in opposition. And Don Primarolo, of course, is a typical idiot. I mean, she had not got the facts right. And she had not bothered to call me or contact me to find out what was going on. And I shall look at the actual archive of the Independent and I shall find the stories about the various things that they still have that I did for Nasima. And the campaign that I launched for Nasima is still ongoing. Shall come to update on that in due course later. But the essential fact is that a child waited for ambulance, waited for an hour to be taken to the hospital for treatment. That most likely would have saved her. That is the ambulance service's fault. And the fault of the Royal London Hospital, pediatric people, was that they had sent her home earlier when they shouldn't have sent her home at all because she was so ill, which was proven by the fact that she had to wait for the ambulance to come back to hospital. They should not have sent her home. And they did. And this is how the guilty parties, if you like, are held to account. By no means was the ambulance services investigation capable of being called adequate in view of the fact that Nasima died. But the fact that there was an inquiry is something which means that it impacted and influenced the behavior of the London Ambulance Service, in effect, hopefully helping so many other people, from death because of Nasima's kind of, if you like, campaign about Nasima, let's say. And when I wanted to take the case after the ambulance service report and after the resignation of Virginia Bottomley, who was John Major's health cabinet member, who resigned her post, I wanted to take her, that is the Department for Health, Royal London Hospital, and the London Ambulance Service to court, all of them together. I was ready to go to the Queen's Bench Division in 94, 95, early 95. I didn't have the support of Nasima's father, the same person that. So whatever happened in his mind, I'm not going to speculate on that. Somebody must have kind of approached them without my knowledge and warned them not to encourage me to go to court. So I had nothing to prove. I had done my job and I had got the Secretary of State to resign. How often does a local campaign succeed in doing that? In the history of the UK, never. And how do I say that? Because, take an example, look at the current kind of imbroglio, that is the crisis that is affecting the people who are supposedly still active in campaigning to stop the high street rail link, HS2. They have not got even one single MP to quit. And I got the cabinet member for health to resign. Compare that. Just think about that. And this is the kind of unique campaigning that I do. And I'm saying to Tower Hamlets Council, don't make me cause you political losses that you cannot handle. Apologize to the children that you neglected. Apologize to their families, dear ones, loved ones. It appears from the entry on the Wikipedia about Sharmina Begum that she, Sharmina, and her father had some issues, which is very possible. But that she might have had issues with her father and her stepmother cannot be used in any way as excuses or justifications for allowing this child to go to Syria. That is flagrant, outrageous, deadly negligence by Tower Hamlets Council over Sharmina Begum. And they didn't care about Shamima Begum and the other two girls. It's like killing. It's like the London Ambulance Service and Royal London Hospital behavior combined to kill Nasima Begum, aged 11. This is what the negligence of the Tower Hamlets Council to safeguard children's duties did to Shamima Begum, Sharmina Begum, and the other two girls. Practically killed them. Is the community in Tower Hamlets happy with that kind of behavior by the mayors? Would they, those who are still kind of parroting the lie that mayor system is good and that Luthu Rahman did nothing wrong? If they lost one of their girls or one of their children like that, would they be saying that? Is that so funny that somebody else's daughters had their lives destroyed, their families' lives destroyed because of the neglect by Tower Hamlets Council, which was legally duty-bound to protect these children? Would they be saying that if they had lost one of their children, let alone four of them? We shall come back to Tower Hamlets again, but we back to the Daily Tory graph. And let me see the Daily Boris graph. What attack it mounts, it has mounted today, Saturday, against Shamima Begum. Let's see if I can find it. Remember, these are the papers, Saturday's newspapers, Saturday 20th of March newspapers that are worth a few £1,000 rupees in Bangladesh, or takas in Bangladesh and rupees in India and Pakistan. This is the daily Boris graph of lies, and let's see where it lies against Shamima Begum. What page is it? It's page 1. There is a comment against Shamima Begum by this comment editor, so-called, this woman called Cheryl or Cherylee. Let's see where she is doing the piece of hatred. It's this is the one. This is the one that, what's her name? Cheryl Jacobs. Now she's not, she's probably jealous that Shamima Begum, in her makeup or outfit, looks different and maybe probably better than she does. So she's saying, this Cheryl Jacobs, that Shamima Begum doesn't deserve. Now, that is the one against Labour Party. That is the one that she has written against Shamima Begum. On this side, this is the headline: Begum should never return to the UK. That's what she's saying. And what this is the bit and the piece that suggests that she is jealous of Shamima Begum. Remember, this is a piece attacking a young woman aged 21 now, who has lost 3 of her children, one after the other, 3 of them, in a war zone. And the war zone was not something that she independently, I think, chose to go to. Nor did she intend to have even any children when she was leaving at age 15. Okay, so that is the piece that she has written, Cheryl Jacobs. And the beginning is full of what you could call jealousy. Perhaps no one triggers Britons quite like Shamima Begum, even as she languishes in a Syrian camp. And now the jealousy begins. Her symbolism eats at the public's vitals. It's a very raw piece of hatred and jealousy against Shamima Begum. It is a smirking mixture of Islamic extremism, benefit street entitlement, notice that, and after her makeover, Cosmo girl feminism. She is really rattled, this Jacobs. That's the paragraph that she has written, full of hatred against Shamima Begum. On the one hand, she is condemning her as belonging to Benefit Street. Where did she get that idea? Why is she assuming that Shamima Begum, ordinarily, as she was in Bethnal Green at Tower Hamlets, had the mindset, the mentality, the outlook, the attitude of people who are so parasitical that although they are parasitical about their income coming from other people, that is welfare, they steal the likes of Shamima Begum, according to Cheryl Jacobs of the Boris graph, think that they are entitled. What Cheryl Jacobs is saying, that somebody of Shamima Begum's background cannot be allowed to have any entitlement or any sense of entitlement. she is beneath that kind of level. That's what Cheryl Jacobs is saying about Shamima Begum. And there are more, and we shall cover the whole context, the whole text. She says Begum may have been young when she joined ISIL. She may be sincere in her claims that she soon grasped that she had made a mistake. But for most of us, notice what she's saying, most of us. Who are the us that Cheryl Jacobs is referring to in there? But for most of us, this doesn't entitle her to a second chance. No way. Shamima Begum must not have any chance whatsoever. What evidence has she got, this Cheryl Jacobs? What does she know about Shamima Begum? What evidence has she got that this child has no right? I mean, given all the things that have happened to Shamima Begum, starting with the Tower Hamlets Council's mayor pretending that she didn't exist and sending her effectively, allowing her to be brainwashed like Sharmina Begum. According to the Wikipedia entry on Sharmina Begum, two women belonging to the Sisters Forum of the Islamic Forum Europe, based in the East London Mosque, brainwashed Sharmina Begum to the point of saying to her that if she died in Syria, that would be her becoming a martyr. And if she died as a martyr, she would soon go to heaven and paradise and meet her mom. Now, that is a teenage girl, absolutely distraught, out of her wits because of the loss of her mother. And that is what they are telling her. That if she died, she would meet her mother. Can you imagine? Think about that. So she was driven out of her home country, home place, and sent to Syria to meet her mom by being a martyr. This is the entry I have read for the first time today, Saturday, the 20th of March 2021. I had not read this at all. I had not read anything like that. I had not read any similar entry about any of these children until today. So if that is what they are saying about, or they said about this girl, Sharmina, it only remains possible that these other three girls were told similar things, whatever the things particularly were, must have been told to them in order to convince them so fully about the wonderful paradise-like prospect that awaited them in Syria, that these three girls went. That is the kind of thing that must have happened. Nobody was there kind of pushing them physically, but they went of their own will. But the will that they had been interfered with, and somebody invented something in their minds. And while Sharmina was going to get killed and become a martyr in order to, at next stage, meet her mom, these three girls must have been given similar things. And there are already indications in today's reports. The Shamima Begum has said to this Spanish director woman who has done a documentary, words to the effect that she actually went to Syria because she didn't feel loved at home. I mean, surely, if she told this to the filmmaker, documentary maker, that she didn't feel loved. Is it so impossible that a teenage girl would feel that? Has no teenage child suffered anything like that in the whole world? The main reason why people find teenagers difficult to kind of live with or understand is because the teenage years are very difficult, even without going to a war zone. Ordinary lives, people, comfortable homes, comfortable material circumstances. Still, teenagers are not happy. And they've got all kinds of trauma, tantrum, and whatever. But to Cheryl Jacobs, anything Shamima Begum says now is made up, false. Now, this is the organ that is the daily Boris graph. Has got it's like the den of all the racists and anti-Muslims. So it is expected that one of them would be that cruel as Saturday's column by Cheryl Jacobs is. Compare that to the attitude of Lutfur Rahman and his cabal. What were they doing when they neglected the duty of the council to protect these children? Did they keep in touch with the schools? Did they inquire into the minds of the children as noticed by the school head teacher and the school teachers and others? If there was a duty to safeguard children, whatever it was called, because the name has been changed due to various changes in the regulations, but the substantial duty as owed to the children and as the duty is owed to protect children, that has existed for a very long time. If teachers and head teachers and management of the school are really respectful of the children, then they would have noticed behavioral patterns and activities on the part of a child. And they can only notice that if they were looking, if they were concerned and careful, and if they are actually interacting with the children concerned. Clearly, these 4 girls were not interacted with by the school, whereas they were being brainwashed in the case of Sharmina Begum, and they were definitely being treated to the same kind of process and brainwashing the other 3. How is it that all of that went unnoticed by the school and by the safeguarding children duty performers? Executive mayor is a post that, one of my reasons for opposing the executive mayor is because I am a very highly knowledgeable advocate about law and legal rights. And all my studies and all my activities and actions and direct and empirical engagements against licensed law traders and against government officials and so on, and ministers and MPs, etc., has been about the very delicate task of observing, respectfully observing, not snooping on or spying, but respectfully observing from a distance the various sophisticated and subtle patterns of behavior in people. If the person who took my generosity for 8 years is watching this, they must understand why I haven't done anything to make them accountable. And this is this. What I'm doing now and what I have been doing since the kind of exposed their complete corruption, personalities and criminality is this. This is more important. And I am not motivated by anything like revenge. Because if I took any action against that perpetrator, especially after the perpetrator told me something on the telephone in July 1996, and after I was approached in a news agents in Virtual Road on her behalf, my time would be diverted. And there would be nothing that the society and humanity would gain by having this particular perpetrator exposed. That would be too mean. That would be too petty. So I don't do that. My mother said that don't engage in any kind of rows with people who are beneath you. And that's what I try to follow. And so many criminals have been benefiting from my mother's advice to me. And I don't mind that at all, because my task is bigger for humanity and society and my own conscience than engaging in what my mother said, with somebody that is beneath me. Beneath me is not a slogan. It is actually proven by the behavior of that person. I'm not going to give any details at all. I have not. So, and I can deal with that. All my work, my thinking is to deal with that. My great-grandfather, the Ved Shah, the spiritual leader, is who I am. I'm continuing what my great-grandfather was doing, and I shall continue to do that. Help humanity and help, well, in my case, the kittens and the cats, and others, of course, squirrels and the bunnies and others. So when I see somebody like Nasima Begum, my urge is to jump in with the best possible program that I can do, and I did. I don't know how much Nasima Begum has seen of this work because she is in heaven. But I took her on as my own child, let's say. And I did, and I'm going to continue to do everything I can to complete the task for Nasima. So if Luther Roman is watching this, if John Biggs is watching this, make this note. I'm not doing it for me. I want these children, these 4 girls whose lives have been destroyed, I want justice for them. You decide whether you want to apologize and start to do the necessary repairing work. And if you do that, I won't kind of continue and have a go at you as individuals. Number 1. Number 2 is, don't misread the warning that I gave in February 2010, saying that Tower Hamlets Council was not right for ready for having an elected mayor. And I said the community was not. And I'm saying this again. And I'm saying this time with ample evidence of the wrongdoings by Lutfur Rahman and the wrongdoings by John Biggs. Lutfur Rahman, when he greeted me at the Aldgate East Station in 1994, he greeted me as if he wanted my approval. And he knew that he needed my approval. And I have never refused my approval when somebody is doing the right things by the society, by the community. That's what I do. So if he felt that he could ignore the opportunity that I was giving for taking on the case for Nasima Begum, if he thought that it was something that I asked him by way of a favor that I needed, how would I need a favor from him? I am the definitive rights advocate. I have been since way before Lutfur Rahman was biologically born. And everything I have advocated for has been vindicated. It takes some time, but it has been vindicated. So Lutfur Rahman should not repeat the mistake that he made on the 29th of October 2010 when I asked him outside the Brick Lane Mosque to sit down with me and listen to me about what he needs to do now that he was in post as the executive mayor, a post I totally opposed and I still do, but I did not oppose his being in there because he was there as a result of votes. So I make a subtle distinction, substantial distinction between the two. So he said that he would sit down with me. I'm saying it on the record. Lutfur lied. He never sat down with me. So Lutfur Rahman lied. Who did he lie to? I mean, absolutely the whole most inappropriate person on the whole planet he lied to. He lied on the Friday, the 29th of October 2010, and he kept lying. He kept lying. And he used Alibor Chowdhury as the contact with me to communicate the lies, his lies. Everything I said about Lutfur doing the wrong thing has been proven, right? Correctly. Everything I said about Colin Cormack has been proven as being the truth. Alibor Chowdhury volunteered this information to me in Brick Lane at a chance meeting after he had been kicked out of the council by Richard Morey and as had been Lutfur Rahman as well. Alibor said that Colin Cormack was lying all the time. And I had told them. Every day I told Lutfur Rahman that Colin Cormack was lying. And Lutfur Rahman behaved dishonestly every time he said he was on the case and he was doing the right thing. Now, how long did he need? The fact that he did lie over a number of years, all the time that he was in post, I was not going to stop asking him. Now, did he understand that difference? I was prepared to go through all the lies that he was confecting and perpetrating. That is the evidence I am now putting to him. Why did he do that? That is proof that he knowingly neglected Shamima Begum and the other three girls. Let him deny. If he denies, let him publish who asked him to ignore Shamima Begum and this very serious crisis facing these children. I mean, of all places, these children were not asking to be radicalized. They were targeted for radicalization. Who are the other people that are still actively doing similar things? It's not good for the community, not good for society. So, Lutfur Rahman and John Biggs have behaved identically in neglecting their safeguarding duties towards these children. The people that are involved in actively mounting the denial by Lutfur Rahman now are lying. Now, some of them have beards and some of them go to prayers and go to mosques. It is sinful what they're doing now. Lutfur Rahman sold the properties of the people of Tower Hamlets under secretive deals. Why did he do that? He did those things against the advice of many employees of the council. Why did he do that? Let's see what Lutfur Rahman said in front of Muhammad Jubair. Who is Muhammad Jubair? At the time, Jubair was employed or on contract as the so-called chief reporter at the channel called Channel S now. So Jubair was present and Ali Bor Chaudhry was present. And of course, Lutfur was present. On Thursday, we can check the date, but Thursday, 20th of September, 2012. And as we sat down in the basement of a restaurant that is no longer there, but it was in New Road, just opposite the Dental Institute of the London Hospital, from where, outside where I had called various people about Nasima Begum in 1994. This was 2012. 12 and 6 is 18, so 18 years later. I was sitting in the basement of a restaurant called Marcos. And I was actually in the wrong restaurant earlier. I had misheard the telephone description on the telephone call by Ali Bor Chaudhry. So I arrived 2 doors away and looking for them in that restaurant. And then I called on the mobile and Jubair came to kind of show me the right restaurant. Once sat down, or before I could even sit down, Lutfur began to praise me. First of all, he said that he should never have been the mayor. I should have been the mayor. He said I should have been the MP, the first MP and the only MP from Tower Hamlets, and all this stuff. As I said, I had been very prominent and active for years before this boy was biologically born. So I didn't need him to tell me what I could and couldn't do. My whole life is about principle. Those who are kind of in contact with me cannot understand it. They think that I have not realized my potential. They could not be more wrong. If they understood human history, they would know that you cannot tell the truth while serving the lies. So I had to make a decision very early on which way to go. And I made the decision to go the telling the truth way. And it was in my blood, and it is in my blood, my DNA, my DNA. So he told me that I should have been the minister, MP, whatever. And if I tell the details of the reason why I was having that meeting with him, any sensible person watching this, any really sensitive person who understands justice, would want to meet Luthuraman and ask why he was so stupid. And I shall, of course, detail what Colin Cormack is and has done. And I'll detail what Steve Hill is and has done. And I shall detail all the other criminals employed in Terrorist Council and all the other crooks. And I shall diagnose the stupid John S. Williams, who was the head of the Democratic Disservice. And on that basis, I shall expose the racism contained in the ruling of Richard Morey, the QC so-called Election Commission Chair or Election Court Judge. Everything I said to Luthuraman on the 20th of September 2012 and 29th of October 2010 and on 15th of February 2011. These are dates that are etched in my mind. And I told him on other dates as well. Every single thing I told him has come true. It is phenomenal. And for him to have the audacity to say on the record that he didn't do any wrong is not unacceptable because I don't like it. It's not that. Because it's absolutely untrue. It's a lie. Lutfur Rahman was lying every day while he was in that post. He lied to me when he said to Aman Dalby to sit down with me. And he lied to me every time he told me that somebody else would be dealing with it. Jackie Odunoy. Anyone. He had the audacity to tell Alibor Chaudhry just before the May 2014 mayoral so-called election that I should go to the Canary Wharf, wherever the center was, to take part in a public gathering which was supposedly endorsing Lutfur Rahman's candidature for mayoral election the second time, and I should give a speech. Now that shows that Lutfur Rahman is stupid beyond condemnation. How did he conclude that I would go and give a speech in support of his candidacy for mayor? It shows that he didn't understand literally the emails I sent to him and to Alibor and to Rabina Khan, or that he had cognitive difficulties. Otherwise, how is he going around saying that he did nothing wrong? So this is the Lutfur Rahman that let down Shamima Begum and the other three girls. And he must not be given the even notional chance to do that again to any other children, any other people in the borough. And the only way to make sure that he doesn't is a series of steps that the community must take. And the first step is to end this post of mayor. On the 6th of May, people have the opportunity to vote no to the elected mayor post. This chance to vote no, how can you put it in money terms? It's like you have bought a property worth £1 million or more. That's the value of the vote. And buy £1 million worth of opportunity by saying no to the corrupt post of mayor and no to the chance of crooks having the ambition to seek election to that post. Save the society, save the community, and save children and other people who need the council's legally owed duties. You cannot blame anybody else if you don't say no. Vote no to the